Hello and welcome to La Rosa Reads. I'm Denise La Rosa, and today I am excited to share with all of you lovelies the books that I read in January. Let's talk books. So January has come and gone, and I was so ready to say deuces, if people still say that, because it just seemed like a really long month. But I have to admit, the reading month was not so bad. I didn't quite get to a 5-star read. However, there were some 4-star reads sprinkled in there, and I am ready to share them with all of you. The first book that I read in the month of January was Finley, Donovan Knocks Them Dead. This was a book that was gifted to me by my two lovely daughters. It is the sequel to Finley, Donovan is Killing It. So our main character, Finley, and her sidekick Vero, who is also her nanny, the nanny of her children, are just up to their usual antics. So in this particular novel, we have a situation where Finley's husband has a hit on him. There is someone out there that wants to see him dead. Now, this is Finley's ex-husband. However, he's also the father of her two children, and while they don't get along and she's not a huge fan of him, she most certainly doesn't want to have him be, taken away from her children, literally. So Finley and Vero just engage in so many ridiculous scenarios where they have to find their way out of them and their way out of trouble. It was a book that earned 4 stars for me. The first book in this series, Finley Donovan is Killing It, earned 5 stars for me. The reason why I knocked this down a star is because there's no surprises. I think there was just something about reading about these characters for the first time that is unmatched, right? You're not going to get that feeling back in the books to come in this series. That was a one-time deal. So I am curious about where this series is going to go if Finley Donovan jumps the gun. I'm kind of to the point where I've had enough of Finley and Vero because I don't see where this can go other than repeating the same crazy stuff that they've been engaging in. I will say that my reason for reading the sequel was not necessarily for the plot. I just love the characters and I wanted to be reunited with them. So in that sense, Finley Donovan Knocks Them Dead definitely delivered, and I'm happy I read it. It was an overall good experience. The second book that I read in the month of January was All My Rage. This was a book that was recommended by Tori from Tori Reads a Lot on Instagram, and it was a part of her buddy read that is really interesting. It was my first time doing a buddy read on IG, and I had a great time in the comments with my fellow readers. This is a young adult novel that definitely didn't feel like I was reading a young adult novel. It's not that I have a low view of YA novels, but this took on such a mature, deeply moving turn and went in so many directions that I feel like readers of all ages will be able to really enjoy it. And in fact, I think older readers will appreciate it even more because of the added wisdom, lived experiences that are told through these character stories. So Salahuddin's parents come from Pakistan. They traveled over to the United States and settled in a city in California and started this motel. Unfortunately, Salahuddin's mother is suffering an illness, and her life story is really at the center of the entire novel because his mother was such a wonderful person and mentor to Salahuddin's best friend, as well as being that wonderful bright light in Salahuddin's life. His best friend Noor is someone who also has a tragic story of how she arrived in the United States. And what you see are these two best friends' relationships. Their relationship evolved from, the tender ages of childhood, innocence, to grappling with individually and collectively grappling with some more complex challenges as they get older and grow into their teens. They are seniors whenever the story takes place and are really having to grapple with some hard truths and face some aspects of their lives that maybe they've pushed to the side or tried to avoid, but circumstances are forcing them to reckon with this reality that they're living in. And it is so gripping. The characters are so well developed and just draw you in. The writing is impeccable. I was blown away by this read. It was a very sad read, but yet well worth the tears. So I absolutely loved All My Rage. So I moved from young adult to a play, a very classic and phenomenal play known to us as Fences by the legendary late great August Wilson. I love that while I was reading this, I could just picture Denzel Washington and Viola Davis and the other actors who are the performers in the film adaptation. We have an older Black man who is the father of 2 sons and has a wife who are really at crossroads in their lives, and we're dealing with the time period of the late 50s, early 60s. So Troy, this older man, is grappling with being who he is, and while at the same time absorbing the changes that are happening around him and the minds of Black people as we're heading into the civil rights movement, where people are feeling more liberated. He's kind of holding on to some old ways of being while pushing back on some of the newer mindsets that he's surrounded by with his wife and his children. There are also, very similarly to the characters in All My Rage, there are also some hard truths and realities about Troy's lived experience that he hasn't directly faced and reckoned with. And so he's full of these emotions, anger and fear, but it's masked in arrogance and just misogynistic ways of being. It's really interesting to see how these emotions show up in his actions. And it was absolutely an incredible, riveting read. I enjoyed Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Fences was also an incredible reading experience. I will definitely be reading more from August Wilson. Longtime LaRosa Reads fan, viewer, subscriber, all the things, Sandra, told me that I needed to read One Last Stop, and that's exactly what your girl did in January. One Last Stop has a very intriguing protagonist by the name of August. She is a career student who has been to college and is quite afraid of life after school. So she has made a career of going to school. She has transferred to a school in New York City where she has to find a place to live. She finds this unconventional place that's full of unconventional roommates that become her found family. From there, she's traveling to and from school, to and from her job at a restaurant, and runs into this gorgeous woman by the name of Jane that she is captivated by. And from there, the two are engaging in conversation and these interactions that are so just loving, fun, sexy, just a good time. And there's some magical realism happening here because Jane isn't quite what you think she is. Is she real? Is she a ghost? What is happening with this woman who is very much stuck in the 70s from appearance and technology and all the things, like from her clothing? You realize this woman is too good to be true to be in the 21st century. From there, the story takes off and goes in so many fun directions. It was a thick book. I have to say, I found myself feeling like this book didn't need to be as long as it was. However, it was a solid, good read. Thank you, Sandra. I loved One Last Stop. And then there was And Yet by Kate Baer. This collection of poems was exactly what your girl needed in the month of January because your girl felt like she was the Jane of all trades and the master of none. As a working mother, I was just so drained. My oldest daughter is now into sports. She's playing basketball. I'm used to being a performing arts dance theater mom, but this whole sports thing sent me over the edge. I was traveling with her. I was also balancing some work responsibilities. And I remember reading some poems from this collection on a day where I went to work without a bra. I totally forgot to wear a bra. I also, on the same day, traveled to see my daughter's basketball game and ended up traveling to the wrong school of the same name as the school that I was supposed to be at. Your girl had it. I felt like, what is happening with my life? And then Kate Bear, with her poems, made me feel seen, made me feel heard, made me feel like I was not the only mama who was losing her mind, and I embraced it. This is a part of the beautiful, messy journey known as adulting, and I am so grateful for this poet. I took a screenshot because this was a library book. I took a screenshot of this one poem that captured all that I was experiencing and put it into words. And go figure, this poem's titled January. It's one of those mornings that looks like the night couldn't get the darkness out of its system. The children asleep in their beds groan at the sound of me. The cat stretches and moans in her primitive tongue. And I, the master of nothing, walk through every room trying to remember what comes next. Kate Bear, you read my mind and you were in my house knowing what your girl was going through. Love, love, love you. And then there was Spa by Prince Harry. Oh, this book. What has been said about this book that hasn't been said? I was going to do a special book review video on Spare, but I even, quite frankly, was sick of seeing it everywhere and decided to spare you. Pun intended. So, I'm going to offer my perspective. I'm not going to go into a whole big explanation of what was covered because if you want to know, you can find that out easily if you don't already know. Here's what we know for sure. No one knows what it's like to be a member of the royal family. The second thing we know for sure is that Harry has experienced some profound traumas in his life. With that being said, this book that's broken up into 3 parts was a book that I actually listened to via audiobook. And I just couldn't help but listening to it from a mother's perspective and feeling deeply saddened and troubled by the rift between Prince William and Prince Harry. I think more than the Meghan, Harry, and even the passing of Princess Diana, his mother, more than any of that, I could not help but wonder how Princess Diana would feel knowing that her sons are at odds with each other. It was just hard for me to read. I feel like it was a book that I could not rate. I could not give this book a rating. I do feel like if it was written 10 years from now, it would have taken on a different tone. I feel like Harry's emotions are very raw and recent. They're current. And perhaps he will have some deeper insight in the future about what he's experienced. But I got her done. I wanted to listen to it. I did that. And, it is done. It is finished. So, yeah, Spare. I finished off the month of January reading Black Cake. This sweeping generational novel brought to us by Charmaine Wilkerson is simply chef's kiss. First of all, let's look and appreciate the cover. And I'm not the most observant person. I've had this book for a year now here at my house on my shelves, and I did not realize the beautiful, gorgeous woman on the cover. I just saw a bunch of designs. So, I digress. We have a woman, Eleanor, who has passed away and left her 2 children, a son, Byron, and her daughter, Benny, an 8-hour audio recording that uncovers some surprising stories, some surprising truths about their mother and their late father. All of this information is going to forever change the lives of Byron and Benny and the lives of many other people. The way this story weaves in and out of Eleanor's time and life in the 60s as a teenager to the current moment, sometimes like 5 to 8 years prior to her death. It's so beautifully and seamlessly done. There are a lot of characters to keep up with. However, you are so immersed in the story and so invested in these characters that they become like family or familiar to you in some way. And it makes it easy for you to keep up with their stories and to make sense of all that's happening. Black Cake was an incredible reading experience. I gave it a 4.5 stars. What was preventing me from giving it 5 stars is the pacing. The pacing was phenomenal. I mean, for a book this thick, I felt like I flew through it. It was so engaging and the pace was very nice. But I did feel like when we got about a quarter of the way towards the end, it took off and it was like racing. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We spent so much time in Eleanor's life as a teenager and in some very pivotal moments of her life that I felt like took a lot more time. And then when everything was coming together, it was kind of spliced together. And I don't know. I mean, I think it was helpful because you just wanted answers at that point. And, you know, Charmaine gave us the answers. I wish the pacing was a little more even. So, other than that, Black Cake was delicious. Yay! That was my first reading month of the year. I am so excited for 2023. If January is any indication of the kind of reading year I'm going to have, it is going to be on like popcorn because your girl has to say something lame and silly on her videos. So, what are you reading? What did you read in January? Let's talk books, friends. Hop over into those comments and let me know what you're up to book-wise. And until next time, happy reading. Bye.